How exactly is AI going to impact indie game developers and freelance artists in 2024 and beyond? And what can you expect from Starsoft Entertainment's upcoming action-adventure platformer game Savior? Let's take a closer look. AI in 2023, it absolutely exploded, right? And it was crazy to see, and there's so much potential, and there's so much expansion of it that's going to happen in 2024. So I guess for you specifically, as an artist in the industry, it definitely affects the art side of things and a whole bunch of other parts of development. So what excites you about it? What doesn't excite you about it? And what do you see AI, or where do you see AI having a place in game development in the future?
I mean, I think it's going to have a place in every industry that I can think of going forward. I definitely had a moment where I started playing with Midjourney for the first time through Discord, just typing in random nonsense and having it create a full incredible illustration, four of them at a time. But then I went on Pinterest and could do almost the same thing. For art, I think it's going to have an impact, especially if you can start to really dial it in tightly. If I could train it to adopt our art style, really knock out some great pixel art, that could speed up development. I can't imagine how much help that could be.
From your perspective as an artist, when you see a picture, if you put an AI picture right next to a regular picture, and it was the same picture of the same thing, but one was generated by AI and one was a picture that somebody created or took or something along that line, do you think that people can tell the difference between the two right now? I know that's kind of a general question because some AI is better than others, but like across the board, do you think that people can still tell the difference between something created by AI and people?
I don't think I can. I can't speak for everybody, but there's probably people out there that can spot that.
What does that do to the art side of the gaming world though, right? If you have all this AI generated content now that people can lean into, how does that impact freelance artists who work on games and stuff like that? I mean, it's got to have some kind of impact, right?
I'm sure it's going to shrink the amount of work that's out there. I think so much work is just, I was a contractor for over a decade and worked at companies for another decade before that.
Yeah.
So much work we did was just creating generic stuff. We need 8 different crates. We need a wood crate. We need a metal crate.
Yeah.
Just make crates for the next month. That stuff, I don't think people care if it's made by a person. I think for good games, you have art directors and concept artists that are really trying to nail a consistent style. And I think that's harder for AI to do well. I want to believe that there's always going to be a fingerprint of love. Love's the missing ingredient.
I would say, in the same line of thought, right? With artists and AI in the game development world, you saw the actors strike and the writers strike, and on the movie side of things, or the TV side, the entertainment side of things, right? In 23, and both of those disputes, ultimately those contracts included AI verbiage in them. They all had this verbiage in there to try to make sure that their jobs were safe. And I think obviously in the indie world that's impossible, but in AAA, I don't see anybody talking about that, right? Where it's let's put something in place to keep our job safe in 10 years, 15 years, whatever. And it's interesting to see, and it's a little, I wouldn't say it's a lot concerning because we're still in the early stages, and I think there'll always be a need for people to be in every aspect of the industry, but it is somewhat concerning that people are taking more advantage of the early stages of AI in terms of protecting the future of their side of the industry, right?
I'm kind of in a unique position because I'm a company owner. The advantage is having the ability to create content more cheaply. That helps me.
Yeah.
But I've also been an artist for most of my career. There's always a good chance I'll have to go back to contracting. Finding that the jobs have all dried up because they're being done by computers seems like definitely a possibility.
It's something that we're going to have to pay more attention to in the future, but I think to your point, it's well past the beginning stages, and I think in the next 5 years AI will be dramatically different than it is now, and in ways that I don't think even we can really understand at this point, right? You got Elon Musk talking about the AI chips in your brain or whatever that they put in there, and you can just talk to people without even saying anything, all this crazy stuff. And it's just it sounds wild, but then you think about it and you think about how fast AI has kind of evolved, and you're well, I don't know, is it? like right now, AI, to your point, is only as smart as the people who input data into it. But in the future, maybe that changes. I don't know. So,
there's definitely a relationship between how good AI is and how good the programmers are. But the people that were training the AIs that now can beat every human on the planet at chess and Go, that computer is vastly smarter at the thing that it trained itself, basically. It kind of like took off. And I think that's the fear around AI, is that machine learning is kind of unintuitive to us and so fast. Like it went from not being able to beat people at Go to being able to beat everyone at Go in like a weekend.
Yes.
It seems like it's had a hard time getting out of the uncanny valley on the art side. I'm just thinking of the end of Mandalorian season 2. Virtual Luke shows up and just isn't right.
Yep.
But when it does get facial expressions right, you feel like there's a soul inside of it, for lack of a better term.
It's a little different, right?
I think it's going to be pretty terrifying.
The art style in this game, how do you approach the pixel art side of this thing?
Yeah, we have a weird art path where I'm using super antiquated 3D modeling software to build the world. Like all of our worlds are built in an Autodesk program that's not even supported anymore. And then we export them into Unity. So Unity isn't actually really involved. It just sort of displays the 3D art. It's, driving all of actor movement.
I see, okay.
We're using the engine, so we're not using their sort of production tool.
But as a game developer, right, what would you say about like the hardest element of your title? Like the hardest element to create and develop?
Yeah, this project wouldn't have happened without Rob, our concept artist, who's also a very talented 3D animator and modeler. I mean, we designed the dragon together, but he ended up building it in 3D. And then David, our pixel animator, took that and painted the frames. It was just a colossal amount of work. On the art side, that was huge.
Yeah.
Huge undertaking. I think it'll be worth it, like being able to fly dragons. And then on the programming side, this is kind of a guess, but we had years of built up technical debt where the player loop was just 3,000 lines of if-then statements. But eventually Sean S. came along and did a big refactor of the player code while he was also trying to get stair combat working. Didn't seem like that going into it, but just the permutations of how that's set up is nuts. So I think that was the hardest thing that we tried to do on the code side.
It sounds like there's a lot that goes into that. And it shows with your project. I mean, your project, like I said, it's something that catches your eye. And there's a reason for that, because there was a lot of effort that got put into it on the back end of things.
Even if you have the most stellar gameplay ever, getting people to care about it, pretty tough.
Yeah.
Definitely tougher if you don't have catchy visuals. And it doesn't have to be AAA shader crazy stuff.
So we talked about all aspects of this game in terms of the technical side, in terms of broader topics, but what about just drilling down into Savior itself, right? Talk to me about what people can expect, kind of the game world, gameplay itself, what makes this game special, what makes this game unique compared to other titles out there. Just kind of give me that overview for this game.
Kind of at its core, it's a game about bridge building, both figuratively and literally. The game kind of starts you off in areas that have been wrecked by conflict, skirmishes, disease, power outages. Everything's kind of wrecked. It's your job to restore power, find the people that have run off, repair structures and actual bridges, kind of put society back together. Combat was a really important piece of it. I never really played a game that either side scroller where I felt like the combat was really realistic. Like the give and take was really,
it felt intuitive,
tight,
yeah,
and connected. And I always wanted a real clean dodge and then clean like parries where your weapons line up. Pixel perfect connections, really satisfying.
Can I say really quickly with your game, as I was looking at the footage for it, there was a scene on one of your Steam page videos where it's like the character is fighting a much larger figure, and they like slide underneath the figure, with the figure has a hammer, and they swing the hammer and they miss the character, and then one of the other enemy guys is chasing them and they hit the enemy guy and he collapses off to the side on the camera. And I don't know why, but that just felt so intuitive and fun, and it was like this really interesting touch that like it made me smile, and I was like, yeah, this is a pretty cool like attention to detail, and it's just fun to see something like that. That's a big piece of it. Like actor on actor, the actors are agnostic to whether they're fighting player or another actor. So you have a couple different
disparate factions
Yeah.
that don't like each other.
Mm-hmm.
They don't like the player either, but they don't like each other.
Yeah.
And so they'll fight whoever's nearest to them. So you can lead some guys into other areas.
Yeah.
They'll, like,
And start going at it.
engage each other. They're these hermit crabs that wander around and they'll fight anybody. Right now, it's a little bit of a mess, but I'm hoping that we can get these like interactions between lots of NPCs that aren't really related to the story's framed in kind of a way where your protagonist, Sam, knows a lot more about the world because she grew up here, but the player doesn't know the stuff she knows. Characters will talk to her as though they already have a lot of understanding,
Yeah.
but they won't go into detail because they wouldn't naturally. She already knows all the tales.
That's true. Yeah.
So there's no one to really represent the player in their knowledge base. So you'll pick up details. I'm a big fan of some level of realism and especially internal consistency in games. So I want the player's abilities and weaknesses to be evident and consistent, and I want the world mechanics and physics to feel grounded and believable. There's some elements that seem almost supernatural, but just like in Star Trek, they stumble across something that seems supernatural and then they knock down a brick wall and there's a computer back there.
Yeah.
It's too advanced for them to understand. But
Yeah.
still a computer. 20 or 30 years of me playing games, I've been writing down, I wish this game did this, I wish this game did.
Now it's all going into one game. Yep. I like it.